Ladies and gentlemen, joining me on the line, she is the sports director at Local 5. Her name is Reina Garcia, and she had her first taste of Iowa and Iowa State football this past weekend. How we doing, Reina? You just survive okay?
I did. It was a good time. I got in a little late to the game just because I underestimated the game day traffic, so I had to park a little ways away. But I made my way. Got to go over the pedestrian bridge, so that was super fun. But hey, I made it in before any scoring happened, so that's what's most important there.
There you go. Well, I'm glad you had a great first weekend of college football. Your K-State Wildcats, they also won this weekend.
They did. Took care of business. 34-0.
There you go. You get Adrian Martinez, who wasn't great, but wasn't horrible either.
Yeah. Hey, that is better than some teams can say.
Well, we'll get to that in Iowa here in a minute. Well, Reina,
I knew you knew where I would be going there.
I know you're looking to curb stomp the old Iowa Hawkeyes there in their quarterback play, but we'll get to that here in a second. Let's start with the game that you actually saw this weekend. Iowa State took on. And I don't have it pulled up here. Where did it go? I just had it. Blah, 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 blah. SEMO was what it was.
Yep, Southeast Missouri State.
There it is. They win 42-10. It was a game that they were expected to win, expected to dominate it, and looked like they did all of that.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much looked as sharp as you would want them to in a game like this. I mean, compared to Iowa, they definitely had the easier, if you will, FCS opponent. So that kind of worked in their favor. And, I mean, they really just kind of executed in all three phases from start to finish. And I think it really showed in the score that reflected that. And it was a great day for the Iowa State offense in particular.
Hunter Deckers came out, made his, was it his first start? I believe it is his first start this weekend, right?
Yep.
He threw for almost 300 yards, had 4 touchdowns and an interception. Xavier looked good, had 128 yards, and Brock was over 100 yards rushing as well. So I'd say everybody on Iowa State did okay this weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean, that connection between Hunter and Xavier looked as pretty good. And, you know, we kind of had an inkling that that would be the guy he was going to be looking for, and he will probably look for this season. We kind of heard them talk in media day, and that's going to be his guy. He's the best playmaker on the team, and Xavier seems to have a lot of trust in him, a lot of confidence in him. And it's kind of one of those things. It's like, hey, just throw it up there. I'll find a way to come down with it. And that's what we saw on Saturday. So that's definitely one of the most promising things going forward. Is you want that connection to be down pat, and they definitely had that. And so definitely both guys were pretty happy about it post game. And how could you not be? That's a great way to start things off.
Well, I'm looking at the stats here, and I mean it's everything you wanted it to be. I mean, other than an interception that Deckers threw, there's nothing that stands out as, oh wow, that's glaring or anything. It was exactly what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and Jairo was great too. Mostly in that second half is kind of when we really saw the explosion there. Just because, you know, they were a little bit more pass heavy in that first half.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because Xavier had said after the game, you know, they know Jairo to be a power runner, kind of a north-south kind of guy, and he was just kind of pulling out all the stops, you know, was spin moving guys out of their shoes and just doing whatever he could to get those extra yards. And so I think, you know, he kind of showed he's more than just a power runner. He's going to do what he can to fight for those extra yards, whether he's running people over, whether he's, you know, spin moving them, whatever. So I think they were very balanced on offense, which I think that helped take the pressure off of Hunter in that first start. And he was honestly super confident and calm. Like, we asked him when we were talking to him in the post game, you know, were you nervous? I mean, how'd you deal with that? And he kind of said, well, I was kind of waiting for the nerves to come, but they never did. And so I think that speaks a lot to, I think, the confidence that Matt Campbell has in him. And I think and his teammates have in him. And I think when you have that, you can't help but go in feeling confident.
Reina Garcia from Local 5 on the line with me right now as we talk about Iowa State this weekend. Was there anything that stood out to you that they're going to have to work on or that might be an issue? I mean, it's hard when you're taking on a team like SEMO, but, you know, usually there's something to work on, you know?
Yeah, I think they gave up a little bit more in terms of the yardage in the first half compared to the second half than they probably wanted to. I think a lot of that, you know, has to do with them just kind of figuring them out. I know SEMO's quarterback. He was a bit of a mobile guy, so he was able to extend some plays, with his legs quite a few times. And so I think maybe as far as the defense goes, that's the only thing that really stood out is, okay, they probably want to tighten that up a little bit going into next week, just because, not that, Iowa's offense sets the world on fire, but you always want to be imposing on defense, and that's kind of what their defense is known for. But that second half, they really did tighten it up. I think they only allowed 74 total yards. So you kind of saw it correct itself throughout the game.
Reina Garcia from Local 5 on the line with me right now as we talk about college football. Moving over to Iowa, what an interesting day in Iowa City as Iowa escapes the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, which you remember last week how I accidentally called them San Diego State? I was listening.
Yes.
I was listening to the post game, and guess who was making that mistake as well?
Who?
Gary Dolphin. So I'm like, you know what? I don't feel as bad now. But
you weren't the only one.
I know, exactly. So listen, as it goes with Iowa, like kind of what I said last week, the defense is awesome. The special teams is awesome. And then you just have this just junker of an offense, and it didn't look like it progressed or got any better from last season.
That was kind of the one thing that I think Iowa fans were really hoping that there would be an improvement, but still had the expectation, the reality of knowing, it's probably not. Unfortunately, it's not going to get any drastically different. But I don't know if anyone was expecting it to look that bad, especially against a team like South Dakota State. But we should point out, they are a good program. They're one of the top FCS teams in the country. So it's not like, they're just a team that's going to come in and just lay down for you. But still, you expect for Iowa to be able to handle this one and not make it as much of a dogfight as it ended up being. But yeah, thank goodness for that defense that is, as good as a lot of people thought it would be. And Torrey Taylor, goodness, the MVP of the game, really helping them out in terms of field positioning. But yeah, that offense has to get better in a hurry, and it didn't help that they were hampered by injuries. I think that played into a lot of it too, especially to that receiving core. It's hard to try and find a spark in your offense when so many key guys are missing.
Yeah.
From Gavin Williams, he wasn't in this game. So you had LaShawn Williams, who, is kind of one of your other featured backs, but you had the injuries on top of kind of the lack of production just really was not a recipe for success in this one.
It was, as a Hawkeye fan, I knew it wasn't going to be worlds better, okay? Mm-hmm. But I thought it would be better. And yes, like you said, South Dakota State, really good program. Yes, you've got, I think they said, 5 offensive starters were out for that game. 2 of them being wide receivers, Nico Reganey and Keegan Johnson. But you just wanted it to look better, to not go out there and know that it's going to be 3 and out. That's where it was, and it just didn't feel like anything like that. And I think people would have felt better. You left essentially 10 points out on the field where you missed that field goal, which is that kid's first field goal ever, and it was a long one. It was in the 40s. And then did you see that strip of LaShawn Williams, the turnover he had right on down there, like inside the 10 or something?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
It's one of the weirdest strips I've ever seen, where he loses the guy just like reached in and just held onto the ball, and LaShawn just kept going. It was so weird to see. But you're and that was one of the drives where they were actually moving the ball a little bit. So I think if you would have, if you add 10 points to the score and make it 17-3, I think people would feel a little bit different about the game. But man, you just wanted something from the offense. You just wanted them to go out there and do something. Yeah,
and it just seemed like, we talked about last week, you got to find ways to move the chains. No one's expecting them to, throw bombs and have these big explosive plays, but you have to move the chains, whether it's through your run game or, short little screen passes, something, getting your tight ends involved. But it just seemed like they really just could not get momentum, and they couldn't find a rhythm.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just never turned around. You were kind of hoping throughout the game, you're like, okay, they're it's the first game of the season. You try to give that benefit of the doubt, and then as you progress further into the game, it's like, oh man, they really can't get anything going. But I mean, luckily that defense really just put the team on their back, and really, I mean, because towards the end of that game, South Dakota State might have had a chance to get. They had a couple shots that that they could have took to the end zone, but the defense came up big. Those two safeties were huge. So yeah, you're really just hoping to see even just somewhat of an improvement in this offense going forward.
With the way the defense played, and especially, I mean, field goals, we're gonna have, they're gonna have to figure out at some point. Punting is okay, but I mean, your special teams probably got an A. Your defense definitely got an A. If their offense was just a C, imagine what they could kind of do,
Yeah, that's kind of just the frustrating thing about it. I mean, I can't think of a better word. It's just, you think of all the things this program has going for them, and it's like you said, if the offense could really just be manageable, not great, not super explosive, but manageable.
Yeah,
that would make a world of difference.
All right, Reina Garcia, as we make our way through this, of course, Reina is from Local 5 Sports Director over there. That brings us to the Iowa State game happening this weekend up at Kinnick Stadium. It's a 3 o'clock kick. Last I saw, somehow Iowa is still a 3.5-point favorite, which I frankly don't understand. But what are you thinking with this? Because I want to hear what you say, and then I want to give you mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think just based off of what I saw from Iowa State, I think they have the advantage going in, just because I think there's not one unit you can point to in terms of all three phases of the game that is just stands out as glaringly a problem.
Yeah.
The defense we know is solid. They're really, really good. The offense, we knew there would be some question marks, but at least you saw production and you saw confidence there. And so that, to me, gives them the slight edge over Iowa, but I wouldn't say this is going to be a blowout. I try not to be too prisoner of the moment, because at the end of the day, this will be their first big test, I think. This will be the first big test for Hunter Deckers in this offense. We kind of know what to expect from the defense. They're tough. They'll really put pressure on Iowa, but I think this one will be close, but I'm going to give Iowa State the edge, just because overall they're the more complete team right now, based on what we saw from week one.
I agree with you. I don't know who's going to win. I'll put it that way, because I could tell you some things that I think are going to happen, and that's more where I'm at right now. I think Iowa State will have their moments on offense. I don't know if it'll be sustained, but I think they'll have moments where they get that 30-yard pass or that big breakout run or something. I just don't know how much they're going to sustain it. Right. I'm interested to see Hunter Deckers in a really hostile environment, because if memory serves, I don't think he's been in a real hostile environment yet.
Yeah, I think he got some snaps in the last Cy-Hawk game, but this, as a starter, this will definitely be his first real test in a hostile environment, in a game with some pretty high stakes.
And as for the offense, I mean, it can't get much worse than last week, right?
Yeah, you can't go anywhere but up from there.
I mean, I think that's going to be the real question of this game. I mean, if you look at it from that point of view, if Iowa's offense shows up, it's going to be one game. If Iowa's offense doesn't show up, it's going to be a completely different game, because what's going to happen is Iowa State will keep their offense out on the field, and they'll eventually wear down the Iowa defense, which is basically what happened during the Big Ten championship game.
And that's kind of where, when I was talking about earlier, the Iowa State defense kind of, needing to tighten up just a little bit, because it's Iowa, I think, as, abysmal as the offense has been, they're a team that you really just don't want to give even an inch to.
Yeah.
Just in the event that they find a rhythm with that defense being so good, special teams being good. I mean, you can't afford to give them any more than you have to. So I think the defense, if they continue to apply pressure from start to finish and make it really tough on Iowa's offense, I think that's going to be key too, and kind of, helping their offense, because we know Iowa's defense is going to be tough.
Oh, it's going to be an interest. Plus, with this game over the last couple, I don't know what you've heard about it, but I mean, you kind of throw everything out the window when it comes to this game, because nothing ever makes sense. At least the last 10 years, it hasn't. So I really don't know what to tell you. right now.
Yeah, because there's so many variables, even with both teams, even with Iowa State having a convincing win. Like we said, this is Hunter Decker's first
Yeah.
big test. This is this team's first big test. They seem to be very confident that they're a different team than they were last year in terms of their mentality. That's one thing they talked about in the press conference today, is that they feel like they prepared differently than they did last year. They feel like they have a different mentality.
Yeah.
And so you can tell they want this game as much as they tried to downplay, this kind of rivalry
Yeah.
atmosphere. But they seem to really want this. And, Iowa has had the better record in this series. And, over the last 6 in a row that Iowa has won, and they've been pretty close. But there's just variables on both sides of this one. So I'm like you. I think right now I'll give the slight edge to Iowa State. But I could see this going both ways.
It really is one of those things where Iowa State, you kind of know what they are. Well, at least you have a better idea about what they want to be.
Right.
And it's the Iowa offense that's the mystery right now. And depending on whether or not that shows up, that's where the game's going to turn. So I guess we'll see. Hey, real quick, going back to the Iowa injury thing with all the injured offensive members. Any idea if any of them are coming back this week? Have you heard anything or anything like that?
I believe Gavin Williams was listed on the depth chart for this week, so we could see him back. But as far as the other receivers, I haven't. But
Okay.
I think Gavin Williams may be someone who we can expect to see. And who knows, maybe getting him in there could help the running game, because obviously that wasn't spectacular last game. So you're kind of just hoping for anything to provide that spark.
Just something at this
he would
point.
be coming off of injury, but yeah, just anything, any new wrinkle you can throw in there may just be the spark you need to try and get something going.
All right. Reina Garcia from Local 5 joining me on the line right now. We'll see what happens this Saturday out at Kinnick Stadium as the Cy-Hawk game is taking place. Reina, enjoy the game. I'm take it you'll be there?
Yeah, we will be doing our Cy-Hawk Game Day show live out there. We'll be out there in the morning, though. I don't know how early people get there to tailgate. I'm sure pretty early, though. So we'll be out there doing that in the morning, and then, we'll be at the game covering that. So I'm looking forward to just hanging out a whole day there.
Enjoy the wave.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I'm excited to witness it in person.
There you go. Reina Garcia from Local 5 on the line with me right now. Have a great week, okay, Reina?
Thank you.